I'm Craig Hamilton Parker. I'm a psychic medium. If you're new to this channel, we talk about all things topical and so forth, and give my psychic insights into the way ahead and the future. But today I've got a guest. Her name is Joni Patry. You might have heard of her. She's a Vedic astrologer, very well respected in America for her predictions. And so she makes predictions about the future. I make predictions about the future. And strangely enough, some of the things we have to say are very, very similar. So you're going to find this today perhaps a little bit shocking, because some of the things we're seeing are exactly the same. And the planets and the stars and so forth all seem to align to suggest that this is going to happen and when it's going to happen. So we're going to be talking about Donald Trump, the elections ahead. We're going to be talking about his future. We're going to talk about what the NAADI leaves say about him after he's finished his presidency. My God, there's some weird stuff happening today. And also we're going to talk about Japan. We're going to talk about the potential of a Californian earthquake, Taiwan, Israel, and all things about the future. But not the pregnancy of Donald Trump. But anyway, there's some interesting stuff ahead. Hope you'll enjoy the show. And so welcome to Coffee with Craig. Hi, Joni Patry. Good to see you. First time. And it's going to be very interesting, this.
I agree. Thank you so much, Craig. I am so excited because I've been watching your videos and I love your work. I love what you do and what you say. And I really find that we are so similar and really our predictions and what we do and our philosophies about life. So this should be a fascinating conversation with you.
It should be. Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
mean, same thing with me. I mean, so many people sort of say on my comments on my own channel about, your predictions are so similar.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because we're both coming at it from such a different angle, aren't we? I mean, you're coming at it as a Vedic astrologer, I suppose. Vedic, I suppose, is the right word for that, as an Indian astrology. And I'm coming at it with clairvoyance and mediumship. And I think when you got two people coming from different directions like that, you start to think, hey, these guys are getting it from somewhere else. How do they predictions line up? And that's what's going to be interesting to talk about, I think.
I agree. I agree because really the truth is the truth. And where everything's going vibrationally, if you feel and you know it, the planets will say it and your intuition will say it. And both you and I, of course, the reason why we've gotten into the work that we do is that we're very metaphysical and we do love the work with psychic dreams and self-development more than anything. Why are we here? That's what got me into what we're doing. And I know that's part of your work. You're very spiritual. And that's what I loved about you is your spirituality.
Yeah, thanks for that. And yeah, actually, we both have a lot of interest, I believe, in the Indian side of things, really. I mean, about how we develop as beings. I mean, I came into my psychic work through traditional spiritualism, but I found that, and I did 30 odd years, got 30 odd years doing all that, demonstrating mediumship in theaters and things like that. But I always personally felt that there's got to be a bit more to it. There's got to be more to it. There's got to be about how we become awakened beings, how we become enlightened, how we take it a little bit further than just giving messages from grandma. And I think
Yeah.
it's exactly the same in astrology, isn't it? Because when you look at astrology, it's not just finding out about what's going to happen to me, which is all important, but there's a lot of messages there, isn't there, about how to become a full human being.
Exactly. I really discovered so much about spirituality through the study of Vedic astrology. It really helped me become more connected to myself and understand why we are here. It's like a meditation when you look at a chart and the messages that come through. And I always tell people the glyphs that I use in astrology, such as the symbols for the planets, the symbols for the signs, those glyphs actually activate your intuitive powers in the brain. So it is connecting intuitively, but most of all, Vedic astrology is a science. And when you truly understand the science behind it, it really, really gives you so much respect for astrology because it's really about numbers and vibration, and the planets actually have a vibration. And when you're able to read that, you're really tuning into the universe and the divine. This is how I see astrology.
Yeah, I think of astrology in some ways as a map of your karma. Because as you know about there's different types of karma. There's the karma that we bring into this world, the karma we're making now, the karma we make for the future, all hopefully ultimately within control of our own free will, ultimately, because what we do will affect the future and therefore we have control of our future. And that's where I think the map of astrology is all about, isn't it? It's all there to help us to make the best of our life and start to take control in a way, to start to not being the victim of the stars and planets, but to be the one that's working with them.
You couldn't have said it better. I agree with you 100%. Here's what I always tell my clients. I look at a chart as the sum accumulation of all of our karma, who we have been in all of our lifetimes. But then seeing where we came in, what we brought from the past, we have the power to change it. And that's the whole purpose of knowing a chart, because otherwise we're just going to keep doing the same things over and over and over again. But looking at a chart, you can see what karmas there are. Therefore, what you can change in that, like you said, is your free will, so that you don't have to keep reincarnating with the same issues and you heal them. It's all about healing, and it's all about eventually all of us going to a place of enlightenment. That's what it's all about, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about breaking the cycle of karma, I think. I mean, that's you. I've explored some of the most mysterious things in India. I went there. I made a movie there called Mystic Journey to India, and we explored I explored all the what we call the Siddhi yogis, who the ones with special powers. There's one man I met who could sleep in a fire, for example, and
Oh,
there's astrological texts there that are absolutely astonishing. There's one called the Bridhar Samhita, which people can access, but there's certain versions of it that I found where your astrology has already been written in advance. All they basically have is an index. And they look your name up in the index, so they know when you're going to arrive. They say you will arrive at this time. They measure your shadow sometimes with this one, and at that time it will tell you, and they look your name up, and there's your astrology already written out thousands of years ago.
wow.
And I've looked into that, and there's also the potty, which is one where they put a metal plate into a fire, and it reveals in your own language your information about yourself. And then, of course, and I believe you've looked at this yourself, the NAADIs, which are fascinating texts with a lot of astrological information in them that were written 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years ago. We carbon dated some of the leaves, and they were 500 years old at least. But your name is written on it in advance. All they take for that is your thumbprint.
I
Incredible
know.
stuff.
It's incredible. And that's part of the reasons why I had to learn Vedic astrology, because I believe it is the true astrology. It is the true placements of where the planets really are astronomically. And that means something. So I really made it my point to learn Vedic. I used to do Western astrology for 20 years, but then I discovered, well, I got into Eastern philosophy as you. and started studying Paramahansa Yogananda's work and discovered that his teacher was a Vedic astrologer, Swami Sayuteswar. And when I discovered that, I made it a point to learn Vedic astrology. And then my life changed. Everything made sense. And really, all of the mathematical formulas, when you work with divisional charts, it's like numbers are so powerful and important. And I really started to truly understand our karmas and why we're here through this beautiful study of Vedic astrology. And one of the things I would love to do is make Vedic astrology mainstream in the world, where people all know about it and work with it, because it's an amazing science that can truly change lives.
Absolutely. I mean, the Vedic astrology path is incredible. Like I said, so much of that I've explored myself there. I followed, I'm glad you're into Yogananda. I followed all through, went through Varanasi and went to some of the places where some of his teachers have taught. There's an underground cellar in Varanasi where, what was his name now? Trilinga Swami used to work from. And he was the guy that used to be able to bury himself underground or spent weeks at a time underwater without taking a breath. And when you start exploring these supernormal areas and ancient caves and places where these people have been, those vibrations rub off on you and they start to change you. And there's so much, astrology is so much behind it. But I've noticed in India that there's not many people that understand mediumship. I mean, I've got, when I go to India, they all come to see me because they want to know about life after death. They haven't encountered spiritualism so much. Some of them did. Some of the people in Rishikesh understood about it, but and many of the Indian people did find it a whole new thing because they assume you immediately reincarnate. But if you look at people like Yogananda, he says that you know his teacher, who mentioned, the astrologer Sri Yushkara, I can never remember his name. He materialized in front of him like a physical mediumship, which was amazing, really. But anyway, we're both into this prediction thing, of course, as part of our work. And I think it would be interesting if we compare notes a little bit, wouldn't it? Shall we ever start with perhaps Donald Trump? He was important to me because he was the first. I predicted Donald Trump would become president before he even said he was going to run. And they picked up on it on the program The Unexplained. So I got well known about it because the William Shatner's program The Unexplained picked up on it, and the newspapers picked up on it. And I know that you predicted Trump would also be president on his first term, I presume, as well, I believe, Jody.
Yes. Yes. As a matter of fact, it was around 2015 or 16. Well, it was before he was actually running. I was looking at the planets, and at the time, there was a conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter, and they were aligning with the fixed star called Regulus, which is the heart of the lion. It's in Leo. And I made a video way back then as well. And I said, a king will be born. And I didn't exactly realize what this meant, but I realized that the three wise men following the star that represented the birth of Christ, that they were following the fixed star Regulus. And when Saturn and Jupiter aligned with it, it was this bright light in the sky. They conjoined together. And that was what the three wise men who were astrologers, that was what they were following, that star and those two planets aligned. Well, they aligned again. And I did a video saying a king will be born. I mean, I didn't know exactly what I was seeing till he came down that escalator and announced and I thought, can this be? And sure enough, that was exactly what I was seeing. And I made a video about that many years ago before he became president. Looking at his birth chart, oh my God, it was like there was everything there. And I got to share something funny with you, Craig. I was on a panel with some of the most esteemed astrologers giving predictions for the elections for 2016. And most of them were Western astrologers. And I had told the the host of the panel, I said, look, Donald Trump is going to be president. And I got up there with those other 13 astrologers, and everyone said Hillary Clinton. And so I'll never forget, Ray looked at me with a big smile because he thought I was going to say Trump. And I chickened out because because I thought, what if I'm the only one that's wrong? But here's what I did say. I said Hillary Clinton will not be president. And then I started showing everyone all the aspects in Trump's chart that pretty much meant he would be president. But then all I could say was, Hillary will not be president, because everyone looked at me with disdain, like, I was the bearer of bad news, or worse than that, they kind of demonized you when you said anything about Trump. So I backed off because they really were, because I was telling people in my private time that I thought it was going to be Trump. But I chickened out at the last minute. People made me too afraid to say it. And then I came back from the conference and I thought, wait a minute. Everything in his chart says he's going to be president. I know from what the media is saying, I'm probably wrong. So I'm going to do a video for YouTube. And I did. And I said he will be the next president. So I did announce it before the elections. But
yeah, that's the important bit. The good thing about YouTube is we can actually put our predictions up. I mean, I expect like you, like me, and we both get our predictions copied. People copy your predictions, and I see some people doing them word for word. But one of the things that fascinated me with Trump as well, because this I discovered later, because as I mentioned, I'm very into the NAADI oracles, and these are just to explain to people, these are the ancient leaves that were written thousands of years ago, and when you consult them, you just use a thumbprint. When you consult them, it will have your name written on it, your date of birth written on it, the moment of the time of your birth. And in my case, it named my ex-wife's name, my wife's name, my children's names, my brother's names, my father and mother's name, and said things that were absolutely nobody knew, even within the family, things that were known in there. Not stuff you could look up on the internet. And this was done pre-internet. So I got really interested in this, and I thought, I wonder if we could find Donald Trump's NAADI. And we found it. And
really,
we found Donald Trump's NAADI. Now, I'm not going to reveal everything in that NAADI because I don't think it's tempting fate in some ways. Now, it didn't say about his next elections and so forth, because it did kind of say that there's still free will with these things. And that's why it was a bit vague about the second one, because I thought it seemed to be saying he's won, but he hasn't. And of course, later on, you start thinking, was the election rigged? And I think there were lots of stuff going on in the background there. But the thing I find really, my camera just flipped then, but sorry. But the thing I found really interesting is what's going to happen after he's finished his being a president, because it says in his NAADI that he's going to become like a religious figure, because it said in his previous past life, Donald Trump was a Brahmin priest, right? And that's perhaps why he got on so well with people like Modi and that, because it seemed like and they love him in India. They said he was a Shivite priest, and that he fell from grace, because the NAADI usually tells us how we've fallen from grace. That's why we're back in this world. And he said that he fell from grace and became an alcoholic. And of course, Trump now won't touch alcohol. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because his brother was an alcoholic, I believe, I think it was, but he won't touch alcohol. And he has a big thing about that. And you would think someone that plays golf and things like that would be well into things like that. But no, he don't touch it. And I thought that was really interesting, because they didn't know who I was asking for here. I found out anyway, so there was no way that they could have known these things. And it said that later, when he's finished his presidencies, plural, I'm saying, that he will become quite a religious figure and will shock the world. It will shock the world, because he will turn to a type of religion. Now, whether that's Christian religion or he returns to his roots as his original past life and might get interested in Eastern religions, I don't know. But I thought that's a real intriguing one. I mean, there's something for the future that, that could be quite an eye-opener.
wow. Well, I guess that surprises everyone. It surprises me, but that's amazing. How fascinating.
Well, don't you think he's got quite a religious sort of following nowadays, in a way? They see him as a kind of a religious figure.
It is true, surprisingly so.
Yeah.
You know, you're right now that I think about it. Yeah, all the Christians and the born again, Christians are very much into Trump being the leader, almost to the point where it's like, really, can this be true that they're following him? But yeah,
Well, we
um,
lack so many charismatic characters, don't we? I mean, we've got over here, we just had our elections in the UK, and we've
mhm,
had Rishi Sunak, who was a sort of a blank page, followed by our new Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, who's a complete another management type figure. And over there, you've got Biden, who should be put in a twilight home.
yeah.
Um, and the world's crying out for figures, so they take on a sort of, their charisma kind of becomes even more magnified against the grayness and the black background of everybody else. So I think, yeah, I think he's going to be one of the most interesting people in history, I think.
Well, he's always in the news, you got to admit, for good or bad. He's always there. But looking at his chart for this next election, now let me just say this. The last election, I thought he would win because more than anything, I had this dream and I asked in the dream, my dreams were never wrong, by the way. I asked in this dream, I said, who will be the next president? And in the dream, it said Donald Trump will be president again. And so then I thought, well, I didn't see it as clearly in his birth chart the last election. I saw some things that said he could win, but there was other things that wasn't clear because there was things in Biden's chart that said he could win. So I wasn't 100%, but I went on my dream and I was wrong. But one of my students reminded me about this election because I actually forgot about that dream. I thought, well, it didn't work. And in the dream, I told all my students, it said he will be president again. And I thought it was the last time. I had no idea it was talking about this time. But aside from that, his astrological birth chart, I did a video on it, and it is incredibly amazing. It's even better than the first time he won. So all these events when he was going to court and it looked really bad, like there's no way he's going to get out of this. I'm still thinking about his chart, the way it lights up right on election day. It's like Venus comes into a position that is exactly in alignment with his sun and moon, and Jupiter is in the same position. And for those of you that follow Vedic astrology, his dasha is Jupiter Venus, and Jupiter will be in his 10th house. Venus will be opposed it in the 4th house, which is said to be the seat of power. And they both oppose each other, and they're on his sun and moon. By the way, he was born under a lunar eclipse, and people born under eclipses have great power, just like King Charles and just like Prince William. They're both born on eclipses. Eclipses are one of our most powerful tools for prediction in astrology. But my prediction is similar to yours, that I believe Trump's going to win this next
Mm.
election.
Yeah, I've been saying it right from the start that he'd definitely have his second term, and well, they might even pull out Biden. I think they're talking about it now, but I was saying before, will Biden make it through? I was saying this right back at the beginning. I said they're going to, in the last lot of elections, so I said Biden might, if he gets in, they won't stay in because he'll be out, and I think what's his name, Newsom, might. I've got his name wrong, haven't I? Because I'm not. But think he might step in. Have you looked at his chart at all? Because I
Oh
get the
my
feeling
God.
he might be the contender yet.
I can't believe you said that. I did a video already that he will
Oh,
be the
right.
contender because his chart is almost as powerful as Trump's. They're going to run neck and neck. I've already said it. And I've looked at Biden's chart, and I even looked at the chart for his inauguration in 2021. And that's a birth chart in and of itself. And that chart said he wouldn't finish his term. So I'm surprised he's come this far, to be honest. And it says he's not going to finish his term. He absolutely cannot win. I think they're going to take him out. And I think it's going to happen in August. I had sort of like an omen happen that told me it was August, but I was looking at the chart, and really he there's no way he can continue on. Transiting Saturn just stationed on the nadir in his chart, which opposes his MC. The MC is your midhaven. It means your career, your position, where you work. And Saturn aspecting that degree always means a huge change in work, and Saturn is endings. And aside from that, just Saturn being in his fourth house means he's got to make a move, a residential move. And that tells you he's not going to be in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
So,
You see, it's very handy having astrology actually, because you can time events like that. I mean,
yeah.
Nostradamus, for example, used to look at previous events. So he looked, when did the Battle of Hastings happened and what happened there? When's a similar planetary alignment? We get another battle similar. So I tend to get it from the spirit world, because I get I tune into the spirit. I'm go into meditation. I'm given messages from the dead, I suppose, to tell us what's happening, and that's where I get my information. Plus, I believe I'm connected with those rishis who wrote the NAADIs, because I believe I worked on those in my previous life. Well, I'm told I worked on those in my previous life in the NAADIs. So it's very interesting to see how the destiny of is beginning to unfold. But we always will, of course, remind people, won't we, that we still have free will. That the whole thing about this is, people say, is there going to be a third world war? Well, debatable, because we have free will all the time. So we see things like Israel happening, Gaza and that. Maybe we're going to see Hezbollah in Lebanon be hit very soon. I predict also coming up that we're going to see a hit on Iran. And another thing that I think you've also been speaking about too, I've been recently speaking on Japanese television, and I've been talking about that I had in one of my NADIs again, because these are people that have to have a look at the site to see about the NADIs a bit more. Watch Mystic Journey to India on Amazon Prime. There's a plug, sorry. But I saw in the nine NADIs, it said that I was going to warn the world about a giant gas cloud. And I was thinking for a long time, I think, where's that coming from? Where's that coming from? And it came to me a feeling that this would happen, something in the Pacific, which is a big area. It's half the world, really. But I thought it's Pacific is something on that ring that's around the Pacific. And I thought, well, what I feel now is it's going to be something off Japan, and it's going to have such an effect that it's also going to affect even over to California. It's like a big shift in multiple plates in one shot. Not the Casey type sort of shift of the polar shifts, but I feel as if something like that is going to happen, and there's a danger of a gas cloud. That's what my Nadi told me about, and my gut feeling is telling me that that's what's coming up between now and perhaps the end of 2025, and it might even affect the Fuji, Mount Fuji as well at the similar time. And I believe, we were chatting a bit before, did you have something similar to that in your mind as well as?
Yes, absolutely. And I didn't understand it. This cloud makes a little bit more sense. What I saw was, I used to have a Japanese website for 7 years, and I would make predictions for Japan. And I was able to predict the 2011 massive tsunami earthquake. And like I told you earlier, I had a lot of my Japanese people who thanked me because they were able to move events from that March of 2011. But again, with the chart of Japan that I use, I'm seeing a major catastrophe there as well. I wasn't sure if I thought it was an attack or if I thought it was an earthquake. They're so earthquake bound that, it's like you could predict an earthquake for Japan and get it right most of the time. But there's something really big that's going to hit Japan. And the reason why I keep talking about earthquakes and I keep talking about war and explosive events is that the planet Uranus, when we use these outer planets, I love to teach astrology, so forgive me, but I'll make it very clear for laymen to understand. But this planet takes 84 years to go through all 12 signs of the zodiac. So it just shifted into Taurus sidereally, according to Vedic astrology. And I went back and looked the last time that Uranus went into Taurus, and it aligned with Jupiter at this time. And it was during the time of World War II, when the United States became involved in World War II, when Pearl Harbor happened, the attack on Pearl Harbor, and of course, when the bomb hit Japan, the nuclear bomb, Hiroshima. And so this was the very last time that this planet was in that sign, and it's returned to this sign again. And what's going to be happening really soon is Mars is going to align with Uranus. And I've been telling everyone, this degree marking that they come together on is really severe. And I don't want to scare people, but I have to give a fair warning so people can mentally prepare. And they come together around 1 degree of Taurus, 2 degrees of Taurus, and that is conjunct a fixed star called Algol. And Algol is said to be the most demonic star of all. So you get these malefics. Mars is like a trigger, and Mars is like a planet of war and attacks. It deals with anger and explosive events. So coming together with Uranus, Uranus is the planet of sudden, unexpected events. And so you put those together on that degree marking where that star is, we definitely have something that's about to happen this month of July. So that's why I really, this was one of the main reasons, Craig, that I wanted to come together with you, because I want people to understand the possibilities of what can be happening. And then again, what they can do
Yeah.
more than.
I mean, when I was talking to the people in Japan and was saying about this, they've been talking in Japan. They've had other prophecies about the 25th of July is the date they've given. It's the Japanese, as you know, are all into manga comics and things like that. And there's been a whole load of manga comics about Nostradamus and so forth, and the great Japan sinking into the sea syndrome. They say that Japan will sink into the sea on the 25th of July, 2024. I'm a bit suspect about that. I don't quite see it like that, but I think there will be. I see it just as a gas cloud, because that's what it said in the NAADI, and those NAADI readings. I've taken people to have their own NAADIs read. I do workshops on it on my website and things about the NAADIs. And some of the people, when they express, when I find out afterwards when they chat about it and what happened, the things it says are absolutely 100%. 100% predictions. So if the NAADI says something, I really do sit up and take notice, as long as I know it's coming from a real NAADI source, because there's 80% of them out there are completely wacky people that are cheating you, as we know with all professions, is the wrong side. But no, so I feel something is coming up, and in a way it worries me that we both agree.
Me too. Does worry me as well. But I think what I really feel is there's a clearing. I feel like this planet needs a clearing. And everything that's happening, I always believe this. Maybe I'm too optimistic, but I believe everything happens for a divine and a good reason. And maybe we don't understand it at the time, but there's always this evolution where we are growing and becoming more aware and more conscious. And in April, around April 20th, we had this Uranus Jupiter. Now this happens every 12 years that they conjoin, but the sign that they were in is very important. It happened in Aries. And Uranus, even though it's sudden, unexpected events, and Jupiter magnifies things more than anything spiritually, I look at the planet Uranus as the planet of change and transformation, and I call it the Great Awakener. And it actually rules astrology as well. So I know people are going to awaken more to discover the true astrology. And I don't mean talking about your sun sign astrology. I'm talking about the entire system of working with your map, as you call it, the horoscope. This is true astrology. We're not just talking about a sun sign. We're talking about where all the planets are relative when you were born. And this is your map. But what I'm trying to say is that Jupiter conjunct Uranus is going to open more people to all the metaphysical sciences and awareness, the truth. And heaven knows we haven't known the truth for a long time with the way that the media and things are conducted around the world. But we're finally understanding and seeing the truth, probably because we do have the internet now today. We can see the truth. And there's so many things that are clearing the air. And yes, there's a big fight. It's almost like a fight between the light and the dark in a way, the positive, the negative and the positive, but always the light wins. That's my opinion. And that's where we're going. We're all waking up, but we have to go through this birthing process. That's going to be painful. Birthing processes are painful, but once we get to the other side, I think it's going to be a birthing of a new, beautiful world where people are more aware and conscious. What do you feel about that, Craig?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, looking from the astrological point of view, again, of course, with this, we look at the very much within our time zone in our lifetime. But in India, there's time zones are vast. We have in India, I mean, you probably talked about this on your channel before, the yugas, these great vast periods of time. And we are at the moment, because we're in what they call Kala Yuga. So it's the dark age, it's the age of iron. And when you're in that age, in fact, Yogananda's teacher, astrologer, told him this. He said it gets so dark that we even forget we're in it. So we don't even know when it's going to end. And we think it's still going to continue for thousands of more years. But actually, we are at the point of a turning point at the moment. I mean, other teachers have said this. I mean, Sathya Sai Baba talked about the turning of the yugas, and we're at the turning point into a much more beautiful golden age. And at this time, when this happens, great beings are born upon the earth. And I know that there's a great shift happening at the moment where I believe, not only are we individually waking up, but there are going to be very, very powerful teachers coming onto the earth at the moment, right? I believe the Tibetans are also predicting this, because like, for example, the Dalai Lama, who I've had a bit of involvement with as well, he's getting very old now. His time might come. There might be the new incarnation of the next Dalai Lama soon. We might see that happening very shortly. But also there's other teachers. When all the Ganesha statues drunk milk, somebody was born into this world as well. So some of them are already here. And what will happen, I believe, and you see what you think as well, but when people say, oh, there's a great awakening, there's a great golden age, they expect that somebody's going to come. Then in Hinduism, it's a man comes down on a white horse. In Christianity, it's the great awakening, and only the good guys come to heaven, sort of thing. But it's not like that. When the awakening comes, it happens to each of us one at a time. It's like many, many lights waking up. It's like every time a person becomes awoken in this life, if someone becomes enlightened in this life, it even awakens people in the spirit world. The people from the spirit world will gather close because it awakens on both sides of the spiritual planes, on all the lokars, as it were. So I think what's happening is we're all starting to awaken a little bit. We're all starting to brighten up. And although the world seems very dark, these shifts between the ages, they will say, no, as dark as before the dawn, but it certainly is. And we will always get many sort of quakes and earthquakes and things like that. And we'll get shake-ups in all levels of society, because you've got to shake off the old. It's the rebirth. It's the snake shedding its skin. And then we enter the better age. And I think with the work we do, both of us and all the other mediums and psychics and astrologists, I think we're all hooking onto the same idea that ultimately it's a good way ahead. There's nothing to worry about. It's a beautiful, unbelievably wonderful world ahead for our future, for our children and children's children.
I agree. And another thing is, at this time, while we're going through this critical period that we're all being made aware of, realize that when you're divinely connected to the spirit within you, I always tell all my people this because I firmly believe this, and I want your opinion too, that if you are connected to that spiritual guide within you, you'll be protected during these times. I firmly know we'll be protected no matter what's happening in the world. We will be protected. So we don't need to freak out and be so afraid that, something, that the end of the world's coming, because it's not. But there is going to be many crises. But all of us that stay grounded in our spiritual truth and in our soul and in our heart, opening our heart and being part of our spiritual world, we will be protected. That's what I want people to know.
Yeah, I sat with a really wonderful holy man once, and he said to me, he said, Craig, you must always live from the inside. Live from the inside and you're always safe. Live from the inside, you're always happy. Live from the inside and nothing can harm you. The problem is with people, they live trying to live on the outside. You think everything on the outside is where it's at. You think it's where happiness lies, but happiness only lies within. So we're always protected. And I always think, and people always have fears about this, that, and the other. People live by fear. We must live fearlessly. We must
Mhm.
live completely without fear, because it's something we actually actively have to do, because the very soul of our nature is at perfect peace, perfect bliss, perfect love, perfect light. So in the Christian sense, seek first the kingdom of heaven and everything else will be added onto it. You don't have to worry about the things of the world. You just worry about finding your connection with the great light within. And it connects across all religions, all faiths, all types of people, clever and daft. It's the same thing. We have in our heart, we have the same beautiful light. And we have no fear. Have no fear.
I'm with you. Beautifully said. And I often tell people, and a lot of people don't understand this, but I tell people, you've got to love the world. By loving the world, that's what really gives you the sense of spirituality. The more you look at nature, the more you look at people and you see the beauty in it and love everything about the world, which sometimes it's kind of hard to do. But when you do this, this gives you enlightenment, not, as a lot of my clients would say, well, tell me when my last lifetime is, because I want to meditate and be spiritual to get out of this world. But they're not loving the world. But when you really have this essence of appreciation, gratitude, and love, and see the beauty in everything, that's what gives you your progress to enlightenment that will help you evolve to the next dimension, not being like, I got to get out of this world. No, love the world with all your heart and soul and be grateful and full of gratitude and love. That's the way. And like you say and I say, we will be protected during these crises and critical times that are approaching very soon.
Yeah,
So I I
great
think
courage comes, I think, if you welcome adversity and you accept it. And like you say, love is the answer. Now, what is the question? I mean, basically, it's the answer to all things, and it's as simple as that, isn't it? Really, it's as simple as that. Well, I think we
beautifully.
pretty much sorted the world out between us, haven't we? There, don't you think?
Well, I wanted to talk just a little bit about what is to come for the rest of 2024 and into 2025, because one thing that you predicted that I'm not clear on, and like you say, we do have free will, so it's not clear yet. But what I've been looking at with the United States and the elections, yes, everything is going to be split because, as you well know, if Donald Trump gets in, it's going to be, a crazy turmoil. There's going to be, people are going to be fighting in the streets. People are going to be angry. But what I see astrologically is Mars. Now, Mars is the planet that's the big trigger, and it's going to go retrograde. So it's slowing down. And I've been charting Mars as it goes through the chart for the United States. When it goes through Gemini and it's starting to slow down, this is in October. Uh, this is where 4 major planets are in the chart for the United States. It is the sun is there at 22 degrees of Gemini. Mars crossing over that, there's going to be all sorts of crazy things happening. And probably a lot of people say the October surprise. Well, my prediction is, I think that's maybe before this, but Gavin Newsom, I think, is going to be running against Trump. I've said this for so long. His chart is lights up like Trump's, but Trump's overpowers it by election day. Then Mars will go retrograde December 7th at 20 degrees of Cancer. No, excuse me, 12 degrees of Cancer sidereally. And when it does, I've looked at all these political leaders and charts for countries, and I was astounded by how many leaders had planets right there where Mars is going to station. For one, Xi Jinping. And I looked at the charts for so many countries, Ukraine and Israel. All of them have this degree marking. It blew me away. So that's where I think there's going to be major war and outbursts, not only just because the United States elections, and all of this is going to start in July, but moving it forward to where Mars stations to go direct, which is around the third week of February. Now I'm looking at February through May, and there is some really critical things for the United States and the world leader, the president, because Mars will station on the United States sun. Whenever a planet stations, it makes it 100 times more powerful. And this is attacks and wars. And like you, I heard you say, you thought there will be an assassination attempt. One more thing I want to add before I want you to give your 2 cents about this is that between March 29th and May 29th, 2025, Saturn and Rahu will come together. The last time they came together in the sign of Pisces was 1968. You know what happened in 1968, besides all the war about Vietnam and all of that. And remember that President LBJ, he stepped down, but most of all, there was the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., as well as Robert Kennedy, within practically the same period of time between April through, well, it was June in 68. But I see an assassination attempt in that window of time, similar to 1968. I don't know if it's going to work. I, for some reason, like you, don't think it's going to work, but there's definitely going to be a hit. So what are your thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, I mean, you summed up what I've said already, actually. I know, interesting, you said the same thing, actually, that there's going to be an assassination attempt on Trump, I think. And that will fail, but he might maybe get wounded or something like that, because there was also some stuff in Nostradamus that seemed to hint at that too, if you look carefully. But I tend to prefer to do my own predictions rather than look at other people's, as it were, with him. But it's kind of hinted there as well. And I there's another, because so much of what comes through to us also comes through the spirit world. There's going to be a lot of, whoops, my camera's done it again, it's a nuisance. There's going to be a lot of problems also still with China, because what's going to happen, I mean, this is perhaps looking a bit further from 25 into 2026 maybe. Things in China are going to start getting very interesting. We had my wife Jane gave some readings to the family of a very famous Chinese man called Sun Yat-sen. He was one of the founders of early China around the time of Mao and things like that. His model for China was nearly taken on before the communists took over. And that energy has been around us a bit. And I feel that part of we're going to get the Taiwan crisis coming up. I've been going on about that, but timing it is so hard to know. In my position, you might be better at that, timing it. But so something's definitely going to happen to that. But I'm seeing also China caving in. I'm seeing China not becoming not the same as we had in the Maoist revolution and so forth, but breaking up into smaller countries, as it were, breaking up as it used to be a long time ago. So Hong Kong will become separate, Tibet will become separate, and then the old cantons, I think they used to call them, become separate again. And I think will become a much more harmonious place. It could be that Xi Jinping is going to see, we're going to see the end of his term in office or whatever. He might go with with a bit of a crash, I think, when that happens. Well, there's so many things we could talk about. I mean, all the, you know, I was talking about in 2015 this, that I saw this coming, and as just timing it is so. In 2015 I was talking about the Russia and China getting together, but at that time it was completely unexpected. And of course, then we get this with all Ukraine, and we got China interfering with these things in the background, and the axis that's become created between China, Russia, and Iran and North Korea. I mean, we could talk forever on these things, but there's so much going on in the background. And so the difficult planetary alignments, when you mention Saturn and Rahu, I mean, that always means time to run. Yeah.
It does. That is a really serious conjunction coming up.
Mm.
But it's particularly the signs that it occurs in, because this conjunction actually occurs about every 11 and 12 years, but it's the signs that make it so important. And really, Rahu and Ketu, they are the points that cause the eclipses where we make all of our predictions. And I have gone over and over right before COVID happened that I knew something that was going to change the world forever was going to happen, because Rahu and Ketu, those points in the zodiac, had returned to where they always create something serious that's going to happen. Very serious. I went back every 18 and a half years. They have a cycle of going through all 12 signs for 18 and a half years. And I took everybody 18 and a half year increments as to what happened every time Rahu was in Gemini and Ketu was in Sagittarius. And I knew it was coming in 2020 around February, March, and that's when we knew what the world was all shutting down about. But if you take it back 18 and a half years prior to that, 82 was the AIDS virus. 18 and a half years prior to that was 63, which, wait, let me take it back to the last time was 2001. Excuse me. We know what happened then. Then 83 was the AIDS virus. Then 63 was Kennedy. And 1945 was the bombing of Hiroshima. Every time there's a catastrophic event. So I just want to leave you with the thoughts of where this is going again will be in the year of 2038. So I want you to start putting on your thinking cap as to what this conjunction, what this lineup of Rahu and Ketu and Gemini Sag could mean again. But remember, where they are always the eclipses, which symbolize a darkening of the light and a transformation. I always say that when we have a solar eclipse, because it darkens the light, this means that there's something that comes out of the light. So essentially, eclipses bring in things we didn't know about, always. And that's where a clearing happens. But that's my take on how I use eclipses and Rahu and Ketu and planets with the nodes as to what's going to be happening in our world.
Do you know what I would do? I don't have the astrological knowledge you have, but if I did, I would be looking at the birth of AI. So when did ChatGPT launch, or the main one launch? They all kind of launched at a similar time. And because I know what you do is you often will plot it as if it's a person and see where it leads us, because this is the big unexpected that's going to come for the future for all of it. I mean, they talked about, like in America, the postal votes and things like that. But when AI starts getting involved, when AI starts being able to put yours and my faces up on the screen completely generated by artificial intelligence with our voices and things like that, you won't know what's what and what's true and what's not in the world. So there's still going to be a dark shadow. This is the dark shadow, I think, is coming out of rediscovering our humanity. Because I think a large part of what's been happening with everything in the world is we've been losing our humanity on so many ways. We've got to the point where people don't know what their gender is. We get to the point where people don't know how to feel properly. I mean, they don't know how to date online, for example. All that, it's all become mechanicalized. Everything's behind a screen. People find it young people often particularly find it very hard to interact with people. There's no music. There's no revolution in music like I'd had in my day in the 70s and things. There's no driving renaissance of art or anything. Everything's become kind of all in this sort of ploddy sort of sameness of movies and everything, and our art and everything's dying there. And I think this is going to be one of the important things, because I think, you know, you get these bursts every now and again, and you can get a religious burst, which I think we're going to see, but you also with it often will get a huge cultural burst. And as the way I look at the world at the moment, I think to me, there's nothing really new out there, music wise, art wise, film wise. It's all copies of what's been before. So I think the world is also ready for a huge boost in being human again, and something's going to happen, and it might be tied in perhaps with AI or something like that, but it's going to be something new. There's going to be some huge outburst. It's like we're going to fight against all the kind of constraints we've had, after a period of conflict, which we've been in for a long time. There often will come another era. There's often, after the war, for example, there was the flowering of culture again. After the Second World War, after the First World War, there was a flowering of culture again. After all great conflicts and periods of great stress and so forth, something usually pretty amazing happens as everybody reacts again. So this is something else I feel. You were talking about the way ahead, further ahead, not quite yet, not perhaps maybe a few more years yet, but I think there's going to be an absolute burst onto the scene of a cultural explosion, another revolution, another renaissance of some sort, which I think will be also something very, very good for the world.
I agree. I love the way you think, Craig, because you are so normal and you're so real, but at the same time, you're so knowledgeable and wise. And I couldn't agree with you more. And, we go
Well, I
back
couldn't
to,
agree with you more on that. I'm so modest as well. You forgot that bit.
well, this is great. I think our conversation has been so revealing, and I've learned a lot, but so much of what you say, it just aligns so perfectly with my beliefs on the world and my astrology predictions. It's amazing, isn't it? I've
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
enjoyed
it's
our
been
conversation.
very interesting. It's amazing when people are sort of have similar views like that. And we've come without, I mean, I've not followed your work much before, to be honest, but I've seen you on the line because you're obviously a big name in astrology. But what I'm saying is we've come independently to these ideas. We've not been looking at each other's ideas. These are things that we've come independently to. And it's very, very interesting, I think today, very interesting. And I
But
suppose people visiting my website, because we'll be going out on both sites with this, they could have a look in the description of the video below and get personal readings from you, I presume, and things like that in the link.
yes, yes, I do personal readings. I have a university that I teach Vedic astrology, and and I do live videos every day with that. I also have a Patreon page where we have a spiritual community where we talk every week about what's going on in the world and how to ground ourselves spiritually. And I also have a magazine, which I would love, by the way, if you would be on the cover of our magazine. That would be great if you would want to do that. So all of this, and most of all, I'm getting ready to launch something that I think is really important for everyone. It's called the Galactic Planner. And what I've done was I wrote all of the translations of what planetary conjunctions could mean. And it's all geared for your own birth chart. So what it is it's a planner that will go into your calendar on your phone or your computer, and it calculates your own birth chart and gives all the predictions you need daily for every month of for however long you want that, for a year going. But I thought this is something that I could give back to the world so people could know what's going on in their chart daily without having to get a full reading, just, daily to have it. So it's getting ready to launch the end of this month. It's called galacticplanner.com, and people will be able to see their own chart and know what's going on in their chart every day so that they can make their plans. That's why I call it the planner. galactic planner. So those are all the projects I'm working on right now. So tell me a little bit about what your plans are for the future, Craig, and what you have going.
Oh, well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, that sounds real high tech. That sounds quite interesting, you know. So don't forget, guys, it's all in the descriptions on both of our websites. And don't forget to give us a thumbs up on both our videos here, because that's important. It helps us to keep the algorithm going. And yeah, I've got all sorts going on. I'm kind of a bit more retro, really, I suppose, because I'm still deeply involved in these NAADI leaves. And I think people that have followed my work will hear me talk about it till I'm blue in the face, because it's so fascinating. So I'm offering those to people around the world. We're also hoping to put it in Japanese soon, for example, so they can come to my site and book a NAADI reading. You can get some readings with me, but I'm absolutely up to here with them. I'm full up, booked solid mainly. But I'm doing a lot of more of the webinars. So I do a demonstration of mediumship, for example, so people can join me on my webinars. And I think that's the way I'm going with a lot of my work now. I like these, like that we're doing here today on Zoom. But you can have up 15 or 20 people in and give messages to everybody, or most people if we can, and some teachings and things like that. And like you, have a Patreon page as well, which I also find is building into a lovely little community of people. So yeah, my website's psychics.co.uk. It's no good saying it, nobody can spell it, but it's in the link there somewhere.
Perfect. Well, I think everyone knows now how to get connected with us, because we
Yeah,
are open to the world.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's been a really interesting talk, and I hope we'll do another one sometime, because I think that is I,
Yeah, let's do it, Craig, because I think, this was just scratching the surface of everything that we can do together.
yeah, I
And
think everybody does enjoy it. And we'll bring my wife Jane into it too sometime too. We can get a multiple thing going. We do it because we do have a couple of shows. We got Coffee with Craig, which is me talking about predictions and things. And then my wife and I get on and we do another one where we talk about more royalty and things like that, and all those type of areas, a bit more down to earth world. But yeah, fantastic. Well, thanks for doing this together. Been
yeah,
fantastic.
it's been my pleasure, and it's been a blast, and we'll do it again.
Okay. Well, we'll say
right.
bye for now then. See you
All right.
soon. So do you like what I have to say? And do you like my work? Well, why don't you support my work? Have a look in the description below to go to my website, find out about psychic readings, find out about our NAADI readings with the Indian NAADI Oracle, buy my books, and join my workshops online by Zoom. All there on the website psychics.co.uk.